morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Solar Panel. I hope everyone's having a good Saturday morning. I really appreciate you guys signing on. It's off season. What the heck are you doing here? But anyway, I'm happy you're here. I'm very happy you're here. I have a couple of excellent guests, but first I want to tell you who I am for people who are joining for the very first time, which, man, if you're joining for the very first time a month into the off season, you have found the right place to be. I'll tell you that. My name is Dave King. I am at Dave King NBA on Twitter. All my writing is at brightsideofthesun.com. And we do this solar panel at least once a week. This is the place for the diehards and the casuals because we don't get too deep. We don't get too buried in the weeds. We talk about the team. We talk about the league. It's just a good time. All right. I have some special guests today. The first special guest I want to bring in for you is a dude many of you will remember from the days of when he started out as the first host on the Solar Panel podcast. He used to run the show. He used to set us all up, get everything. Now I'm stuck doing all this stuff, having fun with it, but I'm stuck doing it. But now here we've got to the show, Tim Tompkins, NBA. How you doing, Tim?
Dave, it is wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to talk to everybody. And I have spent the last 8 months thinking to myself, damn if I didn't quit the show at the wrong time. I mean,
you quit. You have not actually covered the show when the team had a winning record.
yeah. Talk about leaving at the wrong time. I mean, it's been an ongoing joke between my friends and I, but Saul has done an amazing job. I've tuned into virtually every single episode that you guys did. I really enjoyed specifically the episodes that you guys were doing right after all the games and the finals with the Suns jam
The
session
Suns
guys.
jam, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that those were just phenomenal, and I couldn't be happier. Really, I spent the last 8 months just being ecstatic for you and Espo that have spent so many years covering the Suns to finally be able to talk about a winning team, a winning record. What did it feel like to finally be able to talk about that and just be positive and only positive, not talking about draft picks and whether or not Dragan Bender should be getting more minutes and Josh Jackson's and all that crap.
Oh man, this has just been so fun. I don't think obviously it's just been a great season. The entire season has been all about the Suns being one of the best teams in the league and how we're expected to actually win every game. This has been surreal. In the past, you and me and Greg used to predict sometimes how the Suns would do in the next year, in the next week between pods, and we would predict winning records, and every single time we'd be disappointed. This whole season we stopped predicting because it would have been, oh, they're going to go 4-0. Oh, they're going to go 4-0. Oh, they're going to go, whatever it is. So I think it was a great season, huge, incredible, successful season for the Suns, and a great season for the podcast, all the podcasts. Now, I also want to bring on a second co-host for the guest co-host for the day, another person who's been around in the trenches the entire time. What's great about this set of folks today is that we're not just front runners who joined the pod in the last year when the Suns get good. We're the ones who've been covering the team nonstop, sitting at those games when there was only 6 people at the games. 2 of those were me and Gerald. Gerald Bourget is joining us this morning. Good morning, Gerald.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for getting up out of bed. I know this is early for someone of your age, so I appreciate it. This is what 8 o'clock looks like. If you didn't know, the sun really is up.
This is not my typical time bracket, but I'm here for you, Dave.
Yes, thank you for coming on, Gerald. So, Tim, you started potting with us 5 years ago, and we potted almost the entire time of the losing team. Gerald has been sitting next to me in media row for longer than that. What's the first season you covered, Gerald?
I came in halfway through the 2014-15 season, like right after the Goran Dragic and Brandon Knight trades went down.
Right after.
Right
Wow.
after.
So you guys have been around for the worst of times. That is definitely for sure. So yeah, no, this and we've all been there. So now we get to talk about a winning team. Yeah, it's the off season. They're not going to play anytime real soon. Although training camp is only 6 weeks away. The team looks almost exactly the way they did at the end of the finals. But we do have some storylines to talk about. So I want to get into the show. We've got a big show for you guys today. The three of us are going to cover several topics, and we're going to go around the horn on all of them. We've got the Suns came out with the schedule release, and we'll talk about that. They decided to keep their Valley jerseys around for another year, which was not supposed to happen, but they just said, screw it, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to talk about Jalen Smith, the best summer league player since Josh Jackson, and we're going to do a Stat Me Dave section on whether the Suns can sustain their contender status and historically what that means and how similar they look to other teams that surprised the league, came up real quick, made it to the finals. Did they make it back, and can they make it back? We're going to talk about player tiers from an series of articles put out in The Athletic, see how the Suns are ranking these days. And then our big topic of the day is we're going to debate what kind of extensions should be given to DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges. I know nobody has an opinion on this, right, Gerald? Nobody.
No.
Nobody.
It's all very cool.
It, right?
Yeah, cool, level-headed opinions on this for sure.
Okay, just to make sure everyone knows, if you don't know Gerald, Gerald has he's the NBA editor and lead Suns writer for The Step Back on Fansided. He also hosts Valley of the Suns podcast. He's a former Hoops Habit editor. What else do we need to know about you, Gerald?
I mean, I feel like that's pretty much it. You pretty much covered it. I've just been covering the Suns for about 6 years now. And I think you hit all of my titles. You made me sound like Daenerys Targaryen with all those titles there.
You know what? There is one thing I don't know about you that I need to know right now.
What's that?
Why? Why is
Here we go.
That you everyone who's on the YouTube show right now can see that Gerald is not a bad looking dude. He's got good facial hair. He's got the full head of hair. He doesn't have early baldness or anything like that. Good looking guy, nice guy. He's athletic. He's all these things. Why did you have to go all the way to Duluth, Minnesota to get a date? I need to know this.
So I honestly don't know. I mean, if you go back to Jon Snow, he had to go beyond the wall to find the first love of his life. So, I mean, I just had to do the same thing, I guess.
Or she got
well,
killed.
That's we don't need to go with spoiler alert, Dave. But no,
is that why she's not there in the room right now? Oh, okay.
Oh, it went south in Duluth. But no, she's great. I met her on a dating app. She was visiting Arizona one weekend and we just kind of hit it off. And so now it's become a thing. And she's trying to move out here to Arizona. So fortunately, no, I'm not going to be covering the Timberwolves anytime soon. I've gotten that question too many times.
We don't want to lose you to Minnesota, man.
No.
So when you come back to Phoenix, it's just that's what you said. When you came back to Phoenix, you had to catch up on all your shows because you got nothing better to do all of a sudden again. Man,
yeah, pretty much.
You're going to be making trips. You got to make lots of trips. So Gerald, thank you for joining us. Tim, it's so great to have you back. Tim took the wrong 8-month hiatus from the solar panel. He is just a guest. He's not coming back full time. Gerald's not. Gerald's a guest as well. I know everyone's wondering who's going to be joining me full time on Solar Panel. I haven't decided who's good enough for me yet. So, I'm going to be picky this time around because, I believed in other people that just stopped believing in me. So I'm just going to take my time, figure it out, do some dating. I found you guys.
Is there some things I don't know?
No, there's nothing you don't know. I'm just giving a hard time. I'm just giving these guys out because I know Saul is in the chat right now. He's probably sitting there going, boop, 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 boop. So,
no one left the show that I'm aware of, right?
No one left the show. Well, so you're sitting here. Yo, man, you are really not paying attention.
No, no. I have tuned out. I'm telling you, once the NBA season was over, once the Suns lost that final game and the Bucks hoisted the Larry O'Brien, I just I tuned out completely.
Yeah, well, so did my co-hosts. So we've got the Dave King Solar Panel. We have a new podcast feed. I would really, really appreciate if y'all listening to this would go on to Apple Podcasts. I'll put at the end of the show, I'll put the link back in there. Find the new show with the orange logo. It's the new show, orange logo. And the old show is going to be replaced by something else that Espo and Saul are working on. That is going to be a whole different podcast at some point, but they haven't rebranded yet. So I put the link in the chat for you guys to see. I'm showing it on the screen. Of course, you can't click on what's on the screen, but I'm showing it on the YouTube screen right now. It's in your chat. Go in there. Do me a favor. Follow the new feed so you can hear audio later, because everybody who's on the YouTube show wants to hear this in audio later on. And that's, we all do it. So thank you, and share it with your friends and all that too. New show, old name, old host, one old host, and I'm looking for new partners. So right now we're going with guests because I'm dating around, because, you know, when you're single, you got to date around a little bit to make sure you find the right match.
That's what I should have said when you asked me my question.
You find a good one, though. Pay attention to the good one. You know, give the effort to the good one. Don't just date around for the sake of dating around. Otherwise, then you end up losing the good one because you were just dating around and having a good time. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, man, you got to recognize the difference between just dating around and when the good one did show up. That's true.
Yeah.
So I got to make sure I recognize that when it happens. And if anybody in the chat sees that I'm not recognizing it, virtually hit me up the side of the head. All right, let's get into our show. Let's get into the real show, because people are here not for soap opera time or anything like that. They're here for an actual show to talk about the Phoenix Suns. This is a Phoenix Suns show, and we are going to go through a lot of topics. So the first thing I want to go over, we want to go over today, is that the Suns put out their schedule for the next year. And what do you know? For the first time, we just lost Tim. Where'd Timmy go?
See,
Where'd you go, man?
Y'all are on this like new platform with all these new buttons.
No, there's only the one button.
Right. Well, I'm just.
It's just the one.
All right. It's not the same. It's not the same. That was my bad. Won't happen again, guys. My bad.
Hey, so we've got the Suns schedule just came out yesterday. I know Tim's been deep diving into this thing, totally scraping for all where the back-to-backs are, where the home and homes are, all these things. Here's the highlights, folks. Here's the highlights I got out of it, and then we'll see what Gerald got out of it too. What I got out of it is the Suns have the 5th most national TV games this next year. They like us again. The national media likes us. The TV stations like us. I was a little bit worried that the Suns would not get as many national TV games as I had hoped they would, because in the second half of the season, when the networks get a chance to flex in extra games, or in this past year, they totally set the national TV schedule with the second half, halfway through the year. The Suns got less time on TV when they were already good. So I was worried they wouldn't give the Suns a lot of credit this year, but they did. Suns are the 5th most. There's only a few teams with more times on TV. You're probably not going to like this, Suns fans, but guess what? The Lakers are spending more than half their season on national TV. Is anybody surprised by that one?
No.
Not at all.
I can. When you are sitting around and just talking basketball with casual or interested NBA fans, the one team that everybody lands on where they talk about whether or not they're a fan of that team, and as frustrating as it is, the Lakers. It is what it is.
They're all over. They're like termites. You can't get rid of them.
Facebook Suns groups where they keep posting about Lakers.
Yeah.
In it. I mean, even in the Suns group, they don't stop.
Right. Yeah. So more than half, 42 of their 82 games are going to be on national television. The Nets, the Warriors, Nets, and Bucks are the other teams with more national games. Nobody else does. What do you think about that, Gerald?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really impressive. Honestly, you look at the 4 teams that are ahead of them, and it's the Lakers, who have LeBron and Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis, and were defending champs before this season. You got the Nets, who are just star-studded from top to bottom. You got the Bucks, who are the defending champs, and then you got the Warriors, who have Steph Curry, and we know the Steph Curry effect on ratings and all that. So, I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's really impressive the Suns round out that top 5 because, I mean, that's really cool. Like, we never would have guessed that. I think Brandon AZ Sports Zone tweeted out that they have more national televised games this year than they did like in the last decade combined, which is insane. So, I mean, that's
probably true, actually.
But it's kind of close, right? Like, you have to think about it at least. So, I mean, that's kind of exciting that like Suns fans will actually get to see their team on national TV more often, because a lot of the times we've been having to pay for League Pass, or if you're in Arizona, just watching for free, I guess. But like, this is exciting. It's an exciting time to be a Suns fan. They're actually going to be well known across the country, which is what people have been clamoring for Devin Booker for years now.
Yeah. Is there any fear of overexposure?
I mean, I guess that could be a fear, but like, I think the biggest fear for Suns fans is that I saw this come up multiple times yesterday when the schedule dropped, was the fear of casuals having strong opinions about the Suns despite not really knowing the Suns, because that's always been a thing with Devin Booker as far as people having opinions of him without actually watching him play. Well, at least this time they'll get to watch the Suns play.
At least it'll be informed this time, right?
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, a little bit more informed. They will have actually seen the players in the jerseys on the court. So that's true. We have spent, Tim, in your way, Gerald in your way, me in my way, we have spent the last several years defending Devin Booker's ability to be the best player on a great team. And he actually proved it this year. He actually was the best player in the finals for the Suns. And they had a 2-0 lead, and they had leads in 2 other games in the second half that they should have been able to win, but they didn't. Look, the Magic can't last forever. And I feel like we got, as Monty Williams put it, we beat them 4 times in a row. They beat us 4 times in a row. They won the right ones. They got the right 4.
Let me ask you a question. Since y'all cover the Suns now, and I'm just a casual listener, I heard very little talk, and I'm not just talking solar panel, whether it be national podcast, the podcast locally that covered the Suns, the Dario Saric injury. I mean, that really changed the trajectory of the series, and it felt like just something nobody really talked about.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't talk about it very much either, because in my opinion, Dario would have had a tough time in that series. But then again, somebody needed to watch Brooke. I'm sorry. Yeah, Brooke Lopez. Somebody needed to watch Brooke.
Portis, or
well,
just another
or Bobby Portis. You're right, because what the Bucks did is they went big. Right, every single game was Giannis was not the only big on the court most of the time. So what do you think, Gerald? What do you think? Should we have talked more about Dario being missing?
Yeah, I think it was probably the timing of it, because the Suns did go up 2-0 in the series, and so people were feeling good, and they were like, okay, we lost Dario, but we're still up 2-0 in the series. We just have to do what we haven't done all season long and lose 4 straight games. And of course, that's what happened. But I feel like it did kind of fly under the radar a little bit. I think he would have helped as far as just being another big body, another guy that can kind of bang in the paint, because he's not super tall. He's not like a rim protector or anything like that, but he is big enough to make an impact on guys like, Brooke Lopez or Bobby Portis, like you were saying. And the Suns really could have used his skill set on the perimeter as far as being, that secondary playmaker, that floor spacer that we've seen from him at the backup 5 spot. So I think it was one of those things where he definitely would have helped. I'm just not sure how much it would have ultimately mattered. I think it would have helped on keeping the Bucks off the offensive glass, because that really killed the Suns in that series as it went on. But it's just one of those things where you look at that series as a whole, and the biggest factor was Giannis just playing like a Greek god, and I'm not sure how much that would have changed with Saric. So,
right, he played the best basketball of his career
yeah,
at the right time. So great for him, right? Just like in earlier rounds, Devin Booker played the best basketball of his career to close out the Lakers, and DeAndre Ayton played the best basketball of his career to help win those first 3 series. He was, in many people's opinions, the MVP of the playoffs, the first 3 rounds. And then you've got obviously Chris Paul, when he wasn't injured, playing the best basketball of his career. He's the oldest player. He scored like 41 points to close out the Clippers, and then I think 34 points to start off the finals. And that's the most combined points in 2 games for a player at that stage at his age, like in history. So the Suns just didn't get those kind of performances to close out the finals. The Bucks did. So big kudos to Giannis for becoming that guy when he needed it most. This is also the same guy who came up a little short 4 straight years in the playoffs. Wasn't this guy 4 straight years in the playoffs. So I see that as a potential for the future of the Suns getting that good among their younger players anyway. So back to the schedule. The Suns are playing on Christmas Day for the first time since, 2010?
09.
09, but the 9-10 season, correct?
Yeah.
So first time, I don't know. That wasn't it, I don't think. But that wasn't the Roger Mason hitting the shot in the corner to win it over Grant Hill, was it? That might have been a year or 2 before. But I went to a Christmas Day game in Phoenix in either 08 or 10. And Roger Mason, Grant Hill hit a shot with about 7 seconds left to put the Suns up by 1 over the Spurs. They hated Spurs. Only to see, or maybe it was up 2, only to see them, Tony Parker do a driving kick to Roger Mason from a corner 3 to win the game as time expired on Christmas Day. You wouldn't believe how loud the stadium was right up until the shot went down, and then how quiet 20,000 people were on Christmas Day when all their presents got taken away from them before they could open.
That's such a Spurs thing to do.
That is such a Spurs thing to do. Oh, gosh. So the Suns this time, they get to play the Golden State Warriors on Christmas. That should be a heck of a game. I just saw a report this morning that Klay Thompson, the Warriors are targeting Christmas Day for Klay Thompson to return.
Yep.
What do you guys think of that? Tim?
About the Klay Thompson part, or what an honor it is to just be playing
either way, yes. Talk to us about your thoughts on Christmas Day.
So I gotta be honest. So Dave, you had hit me up earlier this week. And you said, "Hey, would you like to guest on the solar panel this week?" And I was like, "Nah, man. There's just not much going on. I haven't been paying as close of attention to the off season as I probably should have. Really needed to decompress and take a break." And then I saw that they were playing the Warriors on Christmas, and I immediately wrote you a message and said, "Never mind, I'm in. This is incredibly. It's an honor, and it's wild, and it says so much about the Suns' ratings. And one thing too, I think, is important is the Suns really, for a lot of casual fans, just became a really likable team last year. You know, front to back, and you can kind of say the same thing about the Warriors. They were just, especially without KD, they were just a really likable team, right? So the NBA has said, look, let's put 2 likable teams on at the same time, playing each other for that marquee matchup on Christmas, and it's amazing. And if Klay comes back, cool. If he does, honestly, he probably won't play all that well. It's his first game back, and I think it would do the Suns good if he were on the court, most likely.
Yeah,
I mean, it would do the Suns good if he were on the court.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's gonna be rusty. Most players don't take that much time off and then come back and just drop 40. You know what I'm saying?
Especially with an Achilles and a knee as well. Gerald, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like Tim said, it's very exciting because they were surprisingly a team that a lot of casual fans wanted to hop on the bandwagon when the playoffs rolled around, and they were such a fun team. So it is nice to see them kind of rewarded with that Christmas Day game for the first time in over a decade. And against the Warriors, like that's a primetime matchup. That's a team that everyone around the country knows. Steph Curry, they have star power, and this is kind of the next step for the Suns. Obviously they made the finals run, but for casual fans, Some of them still might not know that much about the Suns. So this is another opportunity for them to show off, to showcase what they're doing. And if Klay Thompson is making his return on Christmas Day, if that's what it winds up being, like that just adds even more attraction to this matchup. So that's a really cool thing for Suns fans. And it's awesome that, the Suns get to host a home game. I think that playoff run solidified that this is one of the best arenas in the NBA as far as how loud it is, just how energetic the fan base is about having a good team again. So it's just exciting vibes all around, honestly.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. For some reason, because a couple of weeks have passed, I forgot about this, and I should never have forgotten about this. But I'll bet one of the reasons that the Suns are on so many national games is because of the fans. The fans were so incredible this past year. When the fans were starting to let back in even when there was only 5,000, it was such a difference, from zero. But also it was just bigger than any other team's 5,000, louder than any other team's 5,000 fans. It was incredible. And so, yes, I think the fans, all of you guys who went to a game, who were lucky enough to go to a game and had enough money in their pockets to go to a game in the playoffs, because the Suns playoff ticket prices were crazy high. Thanks to you, the Suns are on national TV so much, because it makes it makes a TV broadcast so much better when the fans are drowning out the announcers. It's just great. And they made such an impression. Our fans made such an impression. I'll bet that contributed to some of these games. So yeah, so the Suns are playing on Christmas Day. They're also playing 2 national games in opening week, not on the very, very opening night when there's only 2 games, but over the first 4 nights, there are 8 national TV games, and the Suns are on 2 of them. So that makes Suns one of only 3 teams with 3 appearances between those 2 early releases of opening week national TV and Christmas Day national TV. Suns are one of only 3 teams besides, I believe it's the Lakers and the Nets, who are on 3 times in those nights. And then 34 times overall on national TV. That's almost half of the Suns schedule is on national TV. It's pretty incredible. Any other comments about one other thing I did want to bring up is that the Suns are supposedly one of the lucky teams to have one of the easier schedules for the season. Somebody made a graphic. I wish I was smart enough to be able to share that with you guys. I don't know.
Well, at least you aren't accidentally leaving the chat. See, it's not just me that doesn't know how to use this fancy new software y'all got.
Let me see if I can do this. So hold on. This is a first timer for me. So let me see if I can do this, folks. I'm going to share screen. Oh my. Here we go.
Also, I wanted to chime in on the chat over here in the comments, and I have no idea how to do so.
No.
I'm reading all of them, and thank you, everybody, so much. I have no idea how to chat back, though. Like, not a clue.
What are you talking about? In YouTube?
Yeah, well, because we're on this, the streaming platform that
you just open YouTube separately.
Oh, all right. Thanks.
Yeah, you used to be the host, and that's where you would chat back from. Yeah, just have YouTube open separately in the comments, and you're just like one of them.
That's dangerous.
All right, I tried to share and then told me I couldn't share, but the Suns have one of the easier schedules in the league. Hey, and people listening on the podcast, I just wasted the viewers' time as well as your time trying to figure that out. So sorry to everybody. But the Suns do have guess who has the easiest schedule according to Vegas over under as strength estimates of the 21-22 season. Guess who they project has the easiest schedule of all? Gerald?
I mean, I feel like we're gearing towards Lakers, so that would be my guess.
Tim?
Yeah, it would have been mine too.
Can you freaking believe it?
Yes.
It's actually the Lakers who are projected to have the easiest schedule, even though they are in a division with the Suns and the Clippers.
And the Warriors.
And the Warriors. Yeah,
And the
there's
Kings.
too.
Just kidding.
And the Kings. Well, the Kings are
They
not
got- they
going to
got-
be one of the worst in the league.
They got players, right?
They do have players. Yes. Guess who the second easiest is Dallas, and the third easiest is the Bucks.
Okay.
The Suns are somewhere around 10th easiest or so, according
Yeah.
to Vegas win over under. So as far as predicting the wins for among your opponents, yeah. So there we go. The Pacific Division is going to be a dogfight again. But I've always said, and Tim knows this, I've said it for 5 years, you just got to be good, and the rest of it works itself out. You can't be worried about what other teams are doing. If you just win your games, you're good. You're good. And the Suns did it last year. It wasn't about how good anybody else was. It was about how good the Suns were. That's all that matters.
And I do think it's interesting. If the one thing that stood out on the schedule to me is if you look at the first like month or so, it's a pretty favorable. I mean, obviously we just said that they have like the 10th easiest schedule, but they have a really favorable opening month or so. Like the best teams they play the Jazz twice, they play the Lakers and the Nuggets, obviously, to start the season. But the Nuggets don't have Jamal Murray. The Lakers are still going to be trying to figure things out. They've got the Clippers and then they've got the Jazz twice. And other than that, the other teams that they play are, decent or probably not non-playoff teams. So it'd be good for a team that has continuity on its side, aside from a couple of minor new faces, to like get off to a good start to the season, and kind of do what they didn't do as much as we would have liked last season, as far as beating teams at or below 500, because that was a struggle. The Suns were actually better
For the first
against
couple
teams.
months.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but like for overall, I think they finished with a better record against teams above 500 than they did below 500. So I feel like this year would be a nice year to put that habit to bed and get off to a strong start against some of these lesser teams.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'll be very interested to see how the Suns do that, because it is tough when you're playing so well. They weren't used to being the clearly better team, and they thought they could just show up sometimes and play the bad ones. And the bad teams use that as their little mini playoffs. And maybe next year the Suns will be more ready for that. All right. So that is any other comments on the schedule before we move on?
Curious, kind of schedule related, but with the addition of Alfred Payton, my immediate thought when I saw that was, well, I think the Suns might be planning to rest Chris Paul a little bit this year, a little bit more than they did last year. Speaking of the schedule, do you guys agree with that sentiment, disagree with that sentiment? And might the TV schedule kind of show for sure which games the Suns plan to be playing Chris Paul in?
What do you think, Gerald?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible. I think they have that luxury this year more than they did last year a little bit, because last year they were trying to figure it all out. We remember the first 16 games of the season, what a struggle those were to kind of get that starting lineup together. And it took a good amount of time for that to happen. So I think this year they have that chemistry, they have that cohesion. And it would be good to kind of start treating Chris Paul a little bit more like he's 37 years old. Obviously, he was super healthy last year, and that was great until the playoffs. But they need to preserve him for that postseason run. They have a guy who probably shouldn't have been starting in New York, but was a starting point guard in this league. So now that's your third string point guard. That's pretty good. He's a guy that can run the offense, at least give Chris Paul a couple of nights off this season. And they have, I think, 16 back-to-backs this year. So it'd be good to give him some of those off and just let Cam Payne and Alfred Payton run the show for a night.
Yeah, I would love to agree with you guys. I actually would. Oh, hey, big shout out to the one person who gave us a down thumb. I think, Gerald, don't take it personal on the show. That was yours.
Yeah, never read the reviews. That was something I had to I had to learn by being in broadcasting. Don't always read the reviews, man. It's especially if you're thin-skinned.
It's humbling. Yeah.
No,
I'm just giving a shout out. Big props.
Man.
Okay. Hey, so I have a different take. I've met Chris Paul professionally, not personally, but I've met Chris Paul. I've heard him being talked about possibly resting during his year in Oklahoma City. I heard him being asked about resting his first year in Phoenix. And both times he gave the same exact answer. You guys don't know me. I will not rest. I do not rest. I do not sit games out. I do not take time out. What I do think the Suns were doing is hoping maybe he'll lighten up his opinion, his mood a little bit, but also B, allowing for a midseason injury of some sort. If you've got time where Chris Paul can't play and or Campaign can't play, last year the Suns were stuck with Ayton Moore as a backup point guard. They discovered very quickly that as much as we all love Javon Carter, he cannot run an offense. All Javon Carter does with the ball when he's got to put it on the floor is dribble himself into a tougher shot. That's all he does. There's no passing.
I was still a bit surprised they didn't unleash Javon a little bit more.
Yeah, Javon.
In the postseason, man.
My opinion, and I don't know exactly how scientific this is, and since I don't know that, it's not scientific. But I feel like he has trouble with longer, taller players, and the Suns played a lot of bigger point guards in the postseason. There weren't a lot of guys his size. He can lock up someone his size. But he can't really lock up people that are bigger. And Drew Holiday was just a little bit too big for him. In prior series, I just don't. I think Monty would rather have had Campaign out there and play Chris Paul, Campaign, and Devin Booker for 90 of the 96 minutes. But when there was injuries, when there was like nobody else can play, like Chris Paul missing the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals, for example, you've got Campaign, and then Ayton Moore, or you got Devin Booker trying to play point guard. And while that's nice as a change of pace, that's not really something you want to count on. Especially this past year, Devin Booker was not as focused on passing as he was the year before. I'm curious to see how that evolves in his second year with Chris Paul. But so it's nice to have a guy who can actually run an offense in Elfrid Payton, and a guy who can actually get to the rim sometimes in Elfrid Payton, but you just can't expect him to shoot. So he's kind of like going to be a poor man's Ricky Rubio, if he has to play a little bit, which is hopefully not a lot.
Shoots around 55% of the rim too, if he gets there. So not exactly a dynamic scorer, but it's
league average. It's about league average.
For a guard.
Yeah. I mean, at the rim. Especially for guards. Yeah, exactly. Not for big men, but for guards. Usually at the rim, it's like 60%, but for guards, it's a little bit lower. He's not bad. It's just that anywhere outside of that and how he got there, that's always an adventure.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, like you said, it's kind of you're allowing yourself for the possibility that Chris Paul is hurt or that Campaign is hurt. Because as we saw in the playoffs, when either of those 2 guys is hurt, the guard rotation was not what it needed to be that deep. And, to be fair, a lot of teams you could say that about. If they have to go to their 3rd point guard off the bench, it's probably not going to be pretty. But I feel like the Suns put themselves in a better position to kind of address that, because Ayton Moore is a good player, but as a point guard,
right.
He could drive a little bit and look for his own shot. He could shoot a little bit from the perimeter, but he wasn't a guy that you want running your offense in a playoff game. I'm not sure you can say that about Payton, but if it's a break in case of emergency type situation, you would hope that that's a little bit of an upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like playmaking wise and setting up the offense and all that, it's definitely an upgrade to go to Elfrid Payton. I think that's easy. Easy to say. Tim, I think you're like a bad juju on my throat, because I haven't cleared my throat on a podcast since the last time you were on it.
Right.
And now here we go.
I used to have to try.
I can't.
I'd message Dave on the private chat like the whole hour. Like, stop clearing your throat. Put it on mute.
I can't even with you. I swear to God.
Man, that's funny.
All right. So Elf, yes. So Elfrid Payton having as a 3rd string is probably a better backup than Ayton Moore, and that's all we need to say about him. We don't need him to be any more than that. Next topic is the Suns announced in the last couple of weeks that they're going to keep their Valley jerseys that sold out so well over this past year. So I have a question for you guys. They're going to keep them for another year, which means they get to keep the court they built just for matching the Valley jerseys. How how much more successful do you think the Suns will be this year in not selling out 5 minutes after any new batch goes on sale?
I mean, hopefully better than last year, because people have been trying to get these jerseys for months now and they haven't been able to. Like, it's weird that they haven't like restocked or didn't restock even months down the line. So hopefully it's better than last year, because I know a lot of people, I mean, they're probably top 2, top 3 Suns jersey of all time already. Like, maybe that's a hot take, but I feel like they are fantastic. So I really hope that they make them available and that they have a much bigger stock this time, because the demand for those jerseys is really high. They've kind of become synonymous with this team and with this finals run. So it'd be nice to see them restock and put some of the coolest Suns jerseys we've ever seen back on the market, so more people can actually get them this time.
Yeah, I actually think with an off season, you would hope they'd be able to really build up I mean, it's just screen printing some material, isn't it? It doesn't seem that hard to keep this kind of stuff in stock.
Scarcity helps create demand. I mean, look at the McRib.
Oh,
hey, you guys want to talk about the McRib for a moment?
The McRib.
I just learned a really interesting fact yesterday about the McRib.
It's not actually rib meat.
No, not that. There is a certain amount of pork in it, and the McRib is such a popular sandwich, and there are so many McDonald's that when they launch the McRib, it actually drives pork prices up. So for the rest of the industry, the only time that they are really able to launch a McRib is when pork prices are at the bottom. Otherwise, it screws over everybody else. So if you want to equate that,
but there isn't actually any pork in there, is there?
Yeah, apparently there's enough to where it drives up pork prices.
Pork-like products.
Yeah,
man. That?
So pretty crazy. But yes, scarcity creates demand. So something's always sold out. Everyone wants it a bit more, harder to get, that sort of thing.
I did see something. I haven't seen any actual numbers, but I did see something that the Valley jerseys were a top 5 seller in the past year. So they kept enough in stock to get that high. So
yeah,
I guess
they just need to restock, because if scarcity creates demand, they were really scarce. I can tell you that they need more of them. I hope that this whole time they've just been printing more of these jerseys so that they never sell out after. They're just preparing for
keep the presses going.
Yeah, they're preparing for like a decade-long run of selling these jerseys. It's fine.
C. Bucks to Bar, your pork business acumen is outstanding, Tim.
I got to pay attention to something else now that it's the off season. Also, I got really accustomed to like all this Suns content during the post or during the finals especially, and then it just stopped. All the national shows just stopped. It was so nice though.
It's been nice. It's been nice, man. 2 straight months of the Suns at the top of every conversation, or almost every conversation, was an incredible euphoria. I was so exhausted by the end of the playoffs. I was just physically exhausted from all the stuff we were doing. But I'm already chomping at the bit for next year. So let's get going here. Although I will tell you, let's transition to Summer League. I used to go to Summer League. Tim has gone a couple of times to Summer League. I don't know if he's watched it. He has watched some basketball games. But I used to go to watch the basketball. And I don't know if it was my point of view, like Summer League basketball was not that much worse than Suns basketball. And they often had in recent years a lot of their same NBA players on the Summer League team. So it felt like it was just an extended, like our team finally got other teams they could beat, except they still didn't.
Well, one year, I believe it was like the entire starting lineup for the Suns was their -1 player.
Yeah, that was the Josh Jackson draft year. And they had Chris and Bender and Tyler Ulis from the year before, plus Josh Jackson and Davon Reed. And even Devin Booker played a game or two in 1 or 2 games, I think, in that summer. That was fun because our team got to beat up on some other Summer League team that did. So I'm saying all this as a bridge to, it sucked watching Summer League this year. Suns games. It just sucked.
It was bad.
It sucked ass. I mean, those teams were ass. gosh, who is it on Twitter? Is it Zin? Who said that their ass? I forget who's the guy who always says every team is ass. But shout out to you. That was bad basketball. That was just. Did you guys enjoy summer league? Tim, I'm sure you were turning on every game, right?
All right.
Okay.
I wasn't going to dedicate an hour of my life to watch Jalen Smith. I'm sorry. I just didn't give a damn. Didn't give a damn. Once he plays on an actual NBA court, cool. We'll watch him then. I kind of think.
How about you, Gerald?
Was a bust. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I feel like we kind of got spoiled.
You were in Duluth for some of it, but
I was in Duluth for some of it. I feel like we were spoiled by the finals run, and just going back to summer league basketball was just not really something I was interested in. I tuned in to watch Jalen Smith, and that was pretty much the extent of it, and Tyshawn a little bit. But yeah, that was pretty much the only thing that Suns fans took away from summer league was how Jalen Smith did and what he did, and that's fine. That's where you want to be as a winning team. You don't want to care about summer league anymore.
So on the plus side with Jalen Smith, he's he made first team all summer league.
Mm-hmm.
He rebounded like crazy. He's a guy who, as a second big on the floor, which is incredibly important. He wasn't the only big man, and somebody had to grab the rebounds. There was always another big next to him. In the way the Suns played summer league this year, they were specifically making him play a few games at power forward exclusively. Not that he'll stay there, because James Jones has also said that they're hoping he'll reprise he'll do the Dario role this next year, which is backup center, not big next to Ayton. But they did try him at power forward with rando guys next to him, Kevin Alexander, Zach Hankins, those guys. Kevin Alexander is serviceable, but Zach Hankins, anyway. So, but they played Jalen Smith next to those guys to see how he would do. And what he did is he led all big men in 3-point attempts without them having even a point guard on the roster. He still showed his ability to be unconscious enough and willingness to stay around the 3-point line. And yet, when he led all bigs in 3-point attempts, that did not make his offensive rebound suffer. He got 5 offensive rebounds a game, which led Summer League, and he had 12.5 total rebounds a game, which led Summer League. So he showed an inside-outside ability that we kind of always wanted Dario to have. And he has a reputation, though he didn't do any of it in Summer League, but he has a reputation for good shot blocking as well. Having said all that, he's otherwise kind of a mess. He can't really finish. He doesn't even know what his left hand looks like. He's about as good as me left-handed, as you know, he's about as good as I am left-handed, and that's not a good thing. He's got a lot to work on, but he's not afraid of putting the ball down on the floor to dribble a little bit. He doesn't do anything with it, but he dribbles a little bit. And he can make threes at 36% clip, and he can rebound. So is that enough, Gerald, for him to actually be a Dario filler next year? Do you think he would beat out JaVale McGee, and in what situations?
No, I don't think he's going to beat out JaVale McGee. And I feel like, you know, obviously when you talk about Dario Saric as kind of an inside out big, and you kind of compare that to Jalen Smith, I get it, because Smith can shoot 3-pointers as well. And he was really good on the glass. Like we shouldn't undersell that he led the league he led Summer League in rebounding, which is impressive. And that's kind of, you know, for a Suns fan base that had to watch the backup bigs struggle in this area, and even the starting lineup struggle with rebounds. That's a really encouraging thing to see. I just don't think he's going to beat out JaVale McGee. I don't think he's that ready yet. You know, we obviously saw some encouraging signs in Summer League, but overall he still shot like 36%. He doesn't, like you said, he'll put the ball on the floor, but he doesn't do much with it. He's not much of a passer, which is a key thing that Dario and Frank Kaminsky would bring to the second unit, as far as, you know, Monty likes to call them connectors, in the way that, you know, you can get them the ball at the top of the key and they can make plays happen with the ball in their hands. Jalen Smith can't do that. He's more of a spot up shooting kind of big, which is fine, but it would be nice to see him carve out some minutes. I think it is weird that, you know, they keep trying to play him at power forward when his best spot is probably going to be center. But we'll see. I don't want to put, a ceiling on any 20-some-year-old player who's entering his second year, who didn't get a summer league experience or a real training camp heading into his first year, and who was playing on a finals contender. Like, he wasn't going to carve out minutes as a rookie. So we'll give him some time. We'll see what he can bring to the table. But he did show some encouraging signs in summer league, and he also showed why it'll be hard for him to crack the rotation a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's not exactly Dario. He's not exactly Frank. He's not exactly Jay Crowder, but he has a little bit of a couple of things that could be helpful. And I'm really curious to see how it goes. I do think that Summer League was not about, I'm 100% sure, Summer League was not about putting Jalen Smith in his most comfortable role. Summer League was about James Jones going, I don't care how many games we win. That's why I'm going to bring in all these EuroLeague players, American-born EuroLeague players. I'm going to bring all these guys in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to always have a center next to Jalen. I want to see how he looks at power forward. Now, James Jones's evaluation of how he looked at power forward will tell you what happened. That's going to inform us on what happens in training camp. If Jalen Smith said, if they look at that and they go, you know what, he's much better just as a backup center, fine. He gets to share Dario's role with JaVale McGee, which is 15 minutes a game between the two of them. But if he can show that he can play next to Ayton a little bit, then he can get more. If they think he can't do either role that well this year, that's when you probably end up trading him. But the whole Summer League was about evaluation. It wasn't about making Jalen Smith look as good as possible for himself. That's what rookie Summer League is for. Suns just didn't have any of those on the team. But I would look back at the Suns Summer League history, and almost every one of their good summer leagues that you remember were the rookie summer league for these guys. Their second year summer league, when they were asked to work on their weaknesses, was terrible. Josh Jackson is a good example. His rookie summer league, he averaged 9 rebounds a game and 17 points. And he shot like 40% from the field. Looked great. Second year, it was so embarrassing. He hardly ever, there was no future for Josh Jackson after his second summer league. It was just awful. So we'll see. We will see. We will see what happens. I'm curious how that comes out. He did make first team all summer league, as you mentioned earlier in the show. I just noticed in our show notes, Tim put in extra comments. Do not ask Tim about Jalen Smith in summer league. That's totally fine, Tim. None of us have much more information than we did before. So you picked the right time to just bow out. Let's go to something next. Let's see, our next topic. We are 53. Oh, geez, we're 53 minutes into the show. You know what? We're going to jump all the way into the big topic. Okay, because we're already 53 minutes in, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this. Extensions for DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges. Our friend, the guy who sat with you and I, Gerald, at every game for the past several years, Brendan Clean, had a Locked On Suns episode yesterday where he spent the entire time arguing two things. Not the entire time, but most of the time arguing two things. One is that if the Suns were going to give Ayton a max deal, they would have done it by now, a max extension. So let me give you, for the folks who aren't totally on this, including our second co-host, DeAndre Ayton is eligible for a rookie extension. He's still under contract for next year for 21-22 for around $12 million, I think is the number on his initial rookie deal. But then he's eligible for up to a max extension of up to around $172 million over 5 years. That would still put him, and that's at the 25% number. 25% of the cap is a standard max. You can also do a designated rookie max of up to 30% of the cap, but that can almost always is only given to players who already made All NBA, which DeAndre Ayton is not. So the normal max, so to speak, would be 25% of the cap, which is around $30 million, $31 million. Would still put him a little bit right even with Chris Paul, a little bit below Devin Booker. But what Brendan pointed out is all those max deals to rookie contracts, those max extensions are almost always agreed to within the first couple of weeks of free agency, just as a handover. And Ayton, no center who hasn't already been an all-star has been given a rookie max extension in the past several years. Those two things being true, I think about 90% of Suns fans were in agreement that Ayton should get the max after that playoff run. So which is true? Gerald, tell me what you think. Should DeAndre Ayton get the max even though he hasn't been an all-star yet and even though he's a center? Or should the Suns spend the summer negotiating something less?
I mean, I think my opinion, notwithstanding the fact that it hasn't been done, like you said, kind of shows which way the Suns are leaning on it. And I think that's fine. Like obviously with these types of deals, you're projecting for years down the road instead of what just happened. And what just happened, as we saw in the playoffs, should change the way that you approach this conversation. Because heading into the postseason, I don't think anyone would have been talking about, $172 million max for DeAndre Ayton. Like we were still bemoaning. It was a storyline just this year. Like, why isn't DeAndre Ayton dunking more? And then in the playoffs, he's throwing down game-winning alley-oop dunks in the Western Conference Finals. So the transformation there is really important in evaluating this. I also do think that a max of 5 years, $172 million is a lot. And I've seen people saying like, oh, well, maybe just a little bit less than the max. Well, less than the max in this case would be like 4 years and $133 million. So there's a difference of nearly $40 million, as our friend David Nash pointed out on Twitter. So there's a big difference there. So a little less than the max isn't really a thing that exists. So it kind of makes sense that they haven't been able to come to an agreement if the Suns weren't 100% willing to be like, hey, here's your max. We're doing it. We're going all in on you, that type of thing. And I understand the hesitation there a little bit, just because, okay, we saw it for the playoffs. We saw the impact that he can make in the postseason. Now let's see it for a full season. Let's see where his offense goes as far as becoming more of a shot creator, that type of thing. And they also have, a lot of money dedicated. They're going to have to give Mikal Bridges his extension. They're going to have to worry about Cam Johnson in the near future. I think if you give DeAndre Ayton a max, I certainly wouldn't be upset about it. I think he can definitely grow to be, and he already is, like basically a top 5 center based on what we saw in the playoffs in the NBA, which is impressive for a third-year guy who's only 22 years old. So I wouldn't be mad if they gave him a max, but I do understand why they might be pushing for quote unquote less than the max, which is basically a full year and like $40 million.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think, Tim?
I thought Brandon's episode was really good. So shout out to him. I definitely enjoy that. To Gerald's point too, I think I have to agree that the Suns are likely on the less than the max mindset. Otherwise, it would just be given over to him. DeAndre Ayton certainly showed a lot of growth and improvement, especially on the defensive end throughout the postseason. I'm not so sure that he showed a lot on the offensive end that was an improvement. In the Lakers series and the Clippers series in particular, he basically just stood in the dunker spot, which is great. And, I think he was shooting like 70 or 80% around the rim. Yeah. But they were all lobs essentially sent over to him. I'm not sure that we even saw one post-up move really from him during the postseason. He can't create his own shot, and he hasn't really shown a lot of growth to create his own shot yet. And some of that might also be dictated by a big man only gets the ball when the guards give it to him. essentially for the most part, unless he can set an offensive rebound, right? And I think that even through his progression in the postseason, we did see some hesitancy still from Booker and, to a certain extent, Chris Paul to just not really trust Ayton and give him the ball down low. There were times when Saul, for example, is screaming on the show, just give Ayton the ball, man. And they don't trust him to do it. And I think that there's probably a reason for it. I just don't think he's a max player. I love him. I think he's one of the most humbling players to listen to, and he's a high integrity, high character kid with a ton of talent. But is just giving him the max going to be what's going to dictate whether or not he stays or whether or not the Suns can be successful moving forward? What they're going to do with Cam Johnson, because they give Ayton the max, they then have to give Mikal Bridges $100 million. And this team gets real expensive really quick. And you have to maintain some flexibility. And I'm not sure that giving Ayton a max just because you draft him number 1 overall is the right move. And, it's my thought.
So here was my reaction when I was listening to Brendan's show. And again, love Brendan, been sitting next to him and working with him. He works with me on Bright Side of the Sun as well. I totally respect his opinions. I don't agree with him, and I don't have to agree with him. Brendan's argument and you guys' argument is about the things that Ayton doesn't do. My argument is about the things that Ayton does do. You can't spend a lot of time talking about how he did not stop Giannis Antetokounmpo from being the greatest player in the league.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? 450 other players can't stop him either. So
nobody was stopping Giannis. Nobody.
Right.
Nobody
So to hold that against Ayton is absolutely ridiculous. And you can't do it while ignoring the first 18 games of the postseason, where Ayton was one of the best players in the history of centers in the postseason. Now, I'm not saying he's Shaq. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying centers usually are not as good as Ayton was in the postseason. He set records for field goal percent. And Tim, no, it wasn't all just open layups. He was actually absorbing contact. And his just way of absorbing contact does not include yelling out. I've joked with him about this in post games, or I tried to joke. He doesn't, I'm just a media guy, but he has to learn how to yell when he feels contact or anticipates contact, so he can draw that foul, because that's what the refs see contact constantly. They only call the foul when they're induced into it by a guy throwing himself down. How many times did you see Giannis face down on the ground? He threw himself on the ground at any sign of contact to draw the foul instead of draw the charge. Because if you run through it, for Giannis in the past, he used to lead the league in charges drawn, or offensive fouls committed, because he would run through the contact even though the guy was committing a foul. He's learned how to throw himself to the ground. That's part of Ayton's problem. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the things Ayton does do. He's one of the only guys. There was a whole article on ESPN dedicated to the fact that Ayton has set a new standard for someone that big being able to switch out and hold his own defensively on the perimeter, while also being the best rebounder on the floor, the best rim protector on the floor, and the best finisher on the floor. Now, Brendan's argument was, well, you can get Clint Capella to do most of the things Ayton does. Okay, but that's the thing. That's the difference. Clint Capella can do most of the things. He can rebound, he can finish. Great. But Clint Capella is not going to go out on the perimeter and be passable as a perimeter defender. Neither is Rudy Gobert. Neither are almost all of these other centers. Ayton is that's what makes him unique, and that's what makes him worth more money in a single player. Because guess what? It doesn't matter if you can do all of Ayton's skills in Capella plus others, because guess what? In the playoffs, in any basketball game, only 5 players take the court at once. You can't play 7 players. You play 5 players. And guess what? If one of those can do most of the skills, then you have more skills on the court at one time. So I 100% believe Ayton does not need to be more aggressive and demand the ball. No, he doesn't need to be a max player and to be a difference maker to win a finals. He already showed you can win a finals with DeAndre Ayton, as long as he isn't the only dude who can defend Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay, what the Suns' problem was is DeAndre Ayton had to play timid against Giannis, not only play against Giannis, but play timid because he knew there was nobody behind him. Nobody.
Because
so he had to stay on the court.
Dario Saric was injured.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even Dario
See?
would have been, look, even Dario would have been roasted.
No, he would have been
by Giannis.
roasted.
Although
but, you know,
Dario would have drawn some charges.
yeah,
Dario would have drawn a few charges.
Ayton wouldn't have had to have played 40+ minutes. He wouldn't have had to have played so timid. I think that some of his defense likely would have looked a little bit better, because if he would have been essentially fouled off the court, the Suns would have been doomed.
Right, exactly. So Ayton was trying to manage the game. And I think he did, well, he didn't do as good as he probably will next time if that same situation occurs, but maybe the Suns shouldn't put him in that situation. So, okay, yeah. So I'm not going to respond to the trolls in the comments here. Ayton is the only reason the Suns made it all the way to the finals. I'm just going to say Devin Booker and Chris Paul absolutely were great players, but Ayton was the difference maker, in my opinion, in getting them that far. So so I think the Suns will give him and should give him the max extension, but at the 25% level, not anything higher than that. If they agree on something less, it just has to be with all eyes open and everybody happy. If it's a force feed and you've got a disgruntled Ayton, you can't afford that. Now let's talk about Mikal Bridges for a minute. Mikal Bridges, would you guys agree that he should get more or less money than DeAndre Ayton in an extension? Gerald?
Oh, less. Easily less. And I think, you look around the marketplace and it's less. He won't be getting a max. I think the negotiating line is, like, you look at OG Anunoby and he got a 4-year, $72 million deal, I think. And then you look at like Terry Rozier, he got a 4-year extension. I feel like it's probably going to be in the $80 to $100 million range over 4 years would be my kind of where I would set the bar for expectations there. But it'll definitely be less than what Ayton's getting, and that's probably appropriate. Like you were saying, Ayton showed that he can be a difference maker on a finals team. I don't think that alone makes him worthy of a max. I think you have to project a little bit with justifying a max for Ayton as far as what he could become. But with Bridges, we know what he's going to be. We can see that he's getting really good with putting the ball on the floor. I just don't think he's, in terms of his importance, it might not be as high as DeAndre Ayton's will ultimately become. And because of where they were drafted, I think he'll probably be, significantly less than what Ayton gets in terms of an extension.
I think it's going to be less too. I think Mikal is, his low number is going to be like the OG Anunoby from last year of like a 4 for 72, which was that 18 million. But then again, other players are getting, closer to Terry Rozier just got 4
that one hurts.
for 97 million.
That hurts.
And I would expect that people would rather have Mikal Bridges than Terry Rozier. So we can spend on a different show. We can spend more time talking about what kind of extensions are going on, what this looks like for 22 free agency and all that. I've kept you guys already. It's already over an hour. I appreciate you guys' participation and time. You're dedicating to this, co-hosts as well as everybody in the chat. We could just spend all day talking about this stuff. I definitely agree. But I would say the Bridges, probably, if I'd be really happy if it's in the 20 million range. I'd be very happy with that. Ayton in the 25 to 30, Bridges in the 20. I just want them to be happy. I want them to be happy and settled and not have it turn negative on the Suns. I do worry about Robert Sarver's ability to make that happen. Now it's
do you
the summer
worry
of
about
Sarver.
Future and kind of short-term future flexibility to a certain extent if they just go handing these contracts out to everybody for the sake of keeping them happy? Not that they aren't worth it, but I just wonder.
Well, if you're a finals team, if you're a finals contender, then that's just the price of doing business to have 3 or 4. The Suns' only problem is going 4 huge contracts deep. And most teams can't handle that for a long period of time, but you can handle it for a short period of time. And frankly, there's really only a 1-year overlap with Chris Paul. We'll see what the Suns do at point guard going forward, but they're going to need that development from Ayton, Booker, and Bridges to bridge the bridge after Chris Paul starts declining. Cam Johnson, he definitely is going to get a really good contract too, but that's a couple of years down the road. Let's not even worry about Cam Johnson right now. Okay, well, that has been a great show, you guys. I really appreciate you giving me your time today. We're 110 into the show. Thank you, Gerald. Gerald, tell us where we can find you and what kind of work you've been doing lately. You want to promote anything?
Yeah, so I actually just wrapped up my almost 8-year career with Fansided. So there'll be some exciting things. Thank you. There'll be some exciting things in the future that I'll announce here soon. But for now, you can find me on Twitter at Gerald Bourget. A lot of exciting Suns stuff coming on the horizon.
You got to tell us. Just tell us.
I can't tell you, man. My hands are tied.
Are you going with Espo and Saul somewhere?
I don't know. My hands are tied, Dave. I can't announce.
God. All right. That's fine. Okay, so you've wrapped up this career at Fansided. You did a great job there. Hopefully that doesn't change anything on you going to the games next year.
I should still be at games next year. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Tim, do you want to
can't find me anywhere, guys? Also, don't hit me up on Twitter. I literally never check it. But thank you so much, Blaze, MT, Jim, everybody in the chat, and especially to you, Dave, and it's always a pleasure to see you as well, Gerald, for having me back on for an episode, man. It's an honor. I was really excited to be able to talk to you guys and talk about the Suns with people other than Florida fans, which are they're pretty bellwether, I must say, at the best is probably the nicest way I can put it. But you know what, they aren't from Arizona, so it's hard to blame them. But an absolute honor, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. I am Dave King. You can find me at Dave King NBA on Twitter. You can find my writing where I do most of my work on brightsideofthesun.com. We have a great site over there with lots of different writers, including Brendan Clean and Darth Voida, who's on the jam session and all that. We have really good content over there. Go to brightsideofthesun.com. And of course, you can find us at our new Twitter handle, Solar Panel Pod. Go to that Twitter. The old Twitter is going to get rebranded at some point soon. And our new feed, I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time, because what I would like you guys to do when we stop broadcasting, I would like you to click this link, go to that pod, that podcast feed, follow it. And if you feel so inclined, leave me a nice rating, not a bad one, a nice rating. And and if you want to comment, go ahead and comment too. So I really appreciate all the support you guys have given today being on this pod. And thank you so much for coming on, Gerald and Tim.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you all later.